There's other options, so let's keep exploring.
Okay.
So in another option, you bring out one production person, because we've seen that's 80% of the value add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you bring that one person out.
Production. I'm going to give them a star shape.
Ooh.
Because they're the heroes. And
Yeah,
80%.
because that's where Chris comes from.
Yeah,
I get it.
And it's 80% of the value add.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now,
get it.
You
don't need to design almost nothing.
You're going to set this person up as a microcosm, and they're going to be enthusiastic to do it.
And they could come from outside or they could come from internally.
Yep, so always an option.
It's always
and they're going to have a P&L account and balance sheet, and they're going to have all the basic functions that you'd expect to have to do as a small business.
Yeah.
Now,
and they would contract with all these other people in here.
Now, fantastic. So what he could then do, or she could then do, is to contract with somebody in sales to do sales. And there could be initially an agreement to Jemima in sales.
So they got a contract with the existing sales department.
Yeah,
that is exactly the same and is unchanged.
Let's just say a person in sales like Jemima, and she will, as part of her job, her line manager says, "Oh, and you have to work with Barry, and every so often he's going to come in and he'll give you a wooden dollar." You know, and don't worry about it. But it's just we're doing an experiment.
Yeah.
But as far as the production person is concerned, he's got an external supplier of sales. As far as the rest of the organisation is concerned, they're just doing their normal sales activity. But instead of passing it over to production, some of them goes to this new experiment.
So in his P&L, he's making stuff. And it's going out to a customer. He's shipping it to the customer.
Yeah, and he's invoicing it.
And he's invoicing sales.
No, he's invoicing the customer.
So he invoices the customer for the goods.
Yeah, he invoices the customer.
And then he has to pay sales, wooden dollars, or pretend dollars.
And money comes into him.
Yeah. And he has to distribute some of that money.
And he gives a little bit of that money
up to sales.
And Jemima in sales has to say how many wooden dollars she wants for that job.
Yeah.
For that sales.
That's it.
And they have to agree between them.
Oh, and if she's too greedy, then he'll...
Well, he might just choose... Yes.
But hold on a minute. At this point here, we're probably talking about somebody who's piloting this, saying, Jemima, you've got to be reasonable. You don't want to crash this experiment just because you want 10 times more than you normally get paid. So initially, you get over this problem of these percentages by just creating this faux internal market and say, if we can get this production person to be functional, we don't have to worry about this intricacies. We'll just assume some subcontract trade is going on between the specialities.
But he's doing the buying and selling and the making.
That's right. Yeah.
So he's not going through purchasing anymore.
No.
Probably he's doing his own buying and selling, his own stock control, all
just
that stuff.
Exactly. HR.
His own HR. He might perhaps pay
HR. He might pay HR.
He might pay
just
design.
Like he paid sales. Yeah, he might
say, could you make me some drawings? He might pay design with wooden dollars as well, initially.
Yeah, or royalty.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. But the point is, what we're doing is we're saying, to have a really effective supply chain, you'd have all these separate businesses. But we want to focus on how do we get one just right.
Yeah, and this will be learning for us, but also it would be very low risk. I mean, anybody watching this could just try this. They've just got to pick one person or recruit one person and say, let's try this.
Yeah.
And we could help them with exactly how this wooden dollar thing would work.
Yeah. And remember,
we could just see. And if it works really well, then suddenly they can just duplicate it, can't they? Later, if they want, if it works well.
Yeah. So I want to come on a little bit more. There's another nuance to this. But initially, all the other parts of this supply chain could be virtual, couldn't they? You don't need a properly constructed business of a salesperson. Jemima doesn't need to step out of the sales department. She could just be a virtual trading partner because you're just trading wooden dollars.
Yeah.
But the person in production who's the focus of your experiment, they are creating a virtual business.
So they're real. They're really doing it.
And they're really raising invoices.
Yeah.
They might be going copy to the accounts department because that's where the money's going to flood into. Yeah. But they are attributed with the sales, the revenue.
Initially,
would
you say to them, I want you to actually send a real invoice to the customer?
Yes.
Or would you send it through...
No, I'd say you send it and they can enter it into their system. So you send it out Okay, so that when you dispatch the goods, you send the invoice out.
Yeah.
You then copy that to the accounts department. The accounts department can enter it on the system, the ERP system.
And payment when it comes in would have to go to
well,
accounts.
it would go to
the accounts bank.
Yeah, the company accounts. Yeah,
So
it would say on its sort code company account. And it would be the same.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to set up this real microcosm, but all the other parts of its supply chain that would be there in a fully fractal business, all those other ones are going to be virtual as you get those right. Because it's so easy then to be able to say, we'll change the sales one, because it's only virtual. You can make up any rule for it.
Yeah.
And if you say, it gets no money, then clearly it's not sustainable.
And then when it's working really well, you would then put in a second one. Just the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was only later when you got quite a few of these, you would then start to think, well, when we got 8,
you can
would
then
think,
and a sales.
let's get a full-time salesperson into this.
I think that's making a leap. Because actually, Barry, I know you've written P because it could be Peter, Barry is actually now talking to the customer quite regularly.
Yes.
He's talking to the accounts department because he's doing the invoicing, and talking to the goods in department because he's actually dispatching to them. Then he's talking to the purchasing department of your customer.
He's talking to suppliers.
And he's talking to suppliers. And he's actually now built up quite a little relationship. He doesn't really know he's doing it. It's just his day-to-day work.
Now, I just want to...
So you're saying we won't need to pull Jemima out to look after the 8 of these. The 8 of these will be kind of self-running, but...
It could be
perhaps.
It could be that actually all the sales activity, which are the 5%, is actually covered by Barry now. Because he can say, well, I can do that easy.
Yeah.
Now, and this is the nuance that can come now, and that is, instead of bringing it out by production, which is an activity, you bring it out by outcome, which is a product.
Right.
So now you're thinking, well, okay, we've got these... We make helicopters, but actually we could bring out a little bit of ground support equipment.
Or a back wheel.
Could be, but let's say ground support equipment.
Because that was something that the customer would buy as a one unit.
But often not. They're the helicopter customer. Often it might be the airport.
Yes.
Okay. So now you've got a different customer, you've got a different product, and it's away from your main product of making helicopters. So you're not messing with it. But the great thing is there's not that much sales to do. You allow Pauline or Peter or Barry to practice doing sales with an organisation that doesn't interfere with the helicopter sales. Then nobody's treading on each other's feet. If there's existing contracts already there, it's not exactly the same as new business sales. It's often just talking to the people you know already, you've known for years, and talking to familiar faces about familiar things. And then the invoicing is always to the same people. Now, as far as the finance department of the main business goes, they say, well, that's not so bad because it's just this type of invoices that Pauline or Paul is putting out. It's not flying across a whole broad spectrum of things. It's very bounded.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're cutting their teeth on all these internal administrative roles, but the scope of them is very, very limited, both for them as they're learning and for the rest of the organisation to cope with it. So all the ground
most
support...
people won't even notice. They'll just think, oh yeah, ground support, they're a bit weird. They work in a different way. But
fantastic. So the idea then is you're creating this microcosm which is relatively easy to spill out. It's not going to be so easy when you're looking at speculative projects or business development and stuff, which may have marketing and sales, a lot of intensive product design, qualification testing, all sorts of stuff going on. Whereas some ground support equipment,